at that point in time, was a news anchor for the CBS affiliate here in Las Vegas.
Channel 8.
Yes, and he had extensive correspondence with Los Alamos as well as Kirk Meyer, which was one of the subcontractors that Bob worked for, and they all denied. Kirk Meyer did say he was issued a Z number, which was a number required to be an employee and to get a paycheck, but none of them had said that they retained records that far back. And at this point in time, it was only, 5 or 6 years earlier. It wasn't, 10 years like it is now. And that they didn't retain any records at all. And George gave them numerous chances. He said, "Are you sure you have no record of Bob Lazar?" He asked Kirk Meyer, "Are you sure you have no record of Bob Lazar?" Mm-hmm. They denied. And then that's when Bob came up with the Los Alamos phone book with his name and station number in there, and then also he had a copy of the Los Alamos newspaper from 1982.
And how did they react to that?
Well,
we're also talking about two people. When I was initially hired on, I was hired on via a headhunter, essentially, for Los Alamos.
Sure.
And I worked, like I said, the initial time you work for anyone, in a secure job, you have that time before your clearance goes through, and that's when I worked for Kirk Meyer, and then later became hired on directly at Los Alamos. However, both people, either quote-unquote lost their records or just flatly denied the existence of me even working there.
Well, what pushed you to go public?
What pushed me to go public essentially was fear.
Fear of what? Fear of death, fear of prosecution, fear of
Well, just fear in general. I imagine you can add them all together, and that was essentially what I was feeling at the time. At that time, I had nothing other than what I had said to anybody. For the most part, if I suddenly disappeared off the face of the earth,
nobody would have noticed.
Well, not only would nobody would have noticed, I certainly have friends and family that would miss me, but no one would have known exactly what happened. And
people disappear all the time.
Right.
Well, especially in Las Vegas. So I at least wanted to get what was going on out in the open. And I believe it worked very well. It was essentially a pushback against all the force that was leaning on me. Where if I thought if I just went on in a subdued fashion on television and maybe just said a little bit, and just kind of gave a little shove back, they would lay off. And it was a big gamble, but it worked exactly the way I wanted it to.
Also, Art, at this point, when he was trying to show those around him what was going on, is when he took people like me and his wife and John Lear out to the BLM land outside of Area 51, and we actually saw one of the discs tested in the sky. Now, Bob did this after he told us the story. After he was in trouble and in fear for his life, he told those around him the story, and obviously we were a little apprehensive when a friend said, we thought he was just working in some project for the government. None of us really cared what he was doing. And, so he wanted to prove that, not that we thought he was lying, but it's still an outrageous story to tell your wife and friends and say, oh, by the way, I'm working on flying saucers.
Sure, and John has told me the story of the trip up to Area 51, and there is video to support your claim as well.
Right.
Plenty of video. Now, they didn't let you go, though, because in 1990, and a lot of people use this, Bob, to try to discredit you, you had to plead guilty to a pandering charge related to the apparent operation of an illegal brothel in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a pandering charge, that's very serious.
Actually, I got to pick the charge.
Oh, you got to pick it?
Yeah, I got to pick the charge from three of them.
Now, my understanding is a little vague, but I think all you did was some computer work, isn't that right?
Well, what I literally did, we have to, backtrack to years ago. After I left Los Alamos and opened up 1 hour photo business for my wife in Los Alamos, we had decided to move. And we began, because of our contract with Los Alamos, began to amass quite a bit of money. We were looking for a business to buy into. One of the things we invested in was one of the legal brothels in northern Nevada. A very weird...
in northern Nevada? No kidding.
Right. Well, this was years ago.
Yeah, people need to know, here in my county of Nye, we have legal brothels, and near Reno they have legal brothels as well.
Right, which is up where this was.
Okay.
And it was just another business, just an investment opportunity. We had made money off of it and later got rid of it. However, an amazing coincidence, after I left the lab and we decided to move to Nevada, which is essentially what brought me to Las Vegas here. I had businesses in Southern California, in Northern Nevada, and in New Mexico, and I needed a central hub, and that's the only reason I moved out to Las Vegas.
Sure.
So essentially you knew the brothel business at that point.
Well, yeah, to some extent. And even though we were out of it, after I had left S4 and began to look for some other source of income, I ran into one of the old managers of the place up north.
Right.
And she said she had a place running down here that wasn't running illegally, but she'd wondered if I could install a computer system like we had up there to make her business run smoother. And I said, there's no problem. It'll take me a while to write the program, and I can set the computers up for you, and so on and so forth. They also wanted a security camera outside to make sure a guy wasn't coming to the door with a gun or a knife. So
sure.
I essentially installed all that stuff and left, and that was that was the end of it. However,
only it wasn't the end of it.
No, it wasn't the end of it, and certainly it was pretty. It's
actually, Art, what happened after that is, as you well know, living here in Southern Nevada, that when George Knapp did his special UFOs the Best Evidence in November of '89, George won an Emmy for it, and it was one of the highest rated shows in the history of Southern Nevada. So when it came for Sweeps Week the next spring, George said it would be a great idea to have Bob Lazar on. So Bob had a giant following, and say, what has Bob Lazar been up to? So Bob goes on television, not knowing that installing all of this equipment for a brothel was illegal, and on television, George says, what have you been up to, Bob? And Bob says, I installed some security systems and computers and things for a local brothel.
And then
needless to say, the police were listening that day.
Apparently so. All right, gentlemen, hold on. We've only got one more hour to go, and it sounds like the coffee's working. This is Coast to Coast.